Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Richard Morchoe. With me is Gus Steeves.
Hello, all. How are you doing?
And we are the monthly Long Hill Report. And much news, much news. So I'm going to start off with one of the more mundane aspects in that tax revenue in our beloved Commonwealth has sunk, gone
Supposedly.
down. Gone
Although
down.
last year I think it seems like it was like twice as high as they expected, or something like that last year, wasn't
Possibly, but I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say, because something I actually, the old version of this kind of I know about, the millionaire's tax.
it? Yeah.
I would say, because one time in my life, I helped people arrange their movements so that they would be in another state, because Massachusetts was a high tax state. Yeah, it happened because that's something I know
I'm not
about.
saying you didn't, but yeah.
And I would say the millionaire's tax, as structured, I'd say a lot of people are going. A lot of people will leave. You don't want to
I don't
believe
know.
it.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's.
Well, that's because
I just
you're
don't
millions.
know. I don't know.
Your millions
Yeah, I have
are
such. I have
structured,
such.
are
Well,
structured such a way. Now, yeah,
there's a bunch of zeros. There's not many. There's not many ones in front of them.
yeah, all my zeros are in front.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but I said when that was coming on, I had that kind of job that I would, it was a minor aspect of what I did in life. But in firms, people moved out to the state.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not surprised because we see exactly the same thing with people supposedly repatriating to places like the Cayman Islands on the national scale. I think it's been plenty of evidence to show over the years of psychology studies that show the wealthier you get, the more sociopathic you tend to become, and the less concern you have about the community. There are certainly exceptions, but I have very little sympathy for them.
I don't.
I think that's probably been pretty clear for a long
Actually,
time.
you may not, but it wasn't. And you can say anything you want them. Some of them may be as nice as pure as a driven snow.
Yeah.
Some of them might be as pure as a driven slush. But
Yeah.
it wasn't a good idea to do that, to have a millionaire's tax. You want to figure out a tax that doesn't say to people, go. That says, pay your tax, don't go. And
Maybe
all
true.
things in moderation.
The problem is, I think I can understand the point there, but I think part of it, unfortunately, has gotten to the point where our tax system has so bent over backwards for the wealthy in this country for so many decades that I was just seeing something a couple of days ago about how was it 26? It's either 26 or 36 states or something like that. The wealthiest 1% pay less in actual taxes than anyone else in the state. It's because they get so many tax breaks and so many ways to find loopholes to send stuff to Cayman Islands and stuff like that, that the ones who have the most money aren't paying their fair share.
I haven't looked at it in a while, but I've always heard that it is the wealthier people who pay a preponderance of tax.
They do pay. A lot of them do pay a lot. I won't disagree with that, but I think that part of the problem is that they have so much more wealth than the average person that when the average person is paying 20% and a millionaire is paying 20%, yes, it's a significantly large chunk of money, but the 20% for you and I and Maureen makes a much bigger difference than the 20% for the millionaire plus. And they should be, there's no, and they don't need, and quite frankly, I see no reason to have billionaires.
Fair enough. I personally don't care.
Because most of the time they're stealing it from the public.
If really somebody did really something worth a society, as I say, I always use a societal positive, I don't care what they get. There's a lot of people out there I think, really shouldn't be getting a lot of money. I mean, if you can get the president of Harvard fired, maybe you do have too much money. But
Maybe. Yeah.
I think killing the goose that lays the golden egg is not a very good idea.
I think the problem that the way we do things is that the people at the top of the food chain get rewarded far out of proportion for what they actually do. Whereas the everyday people who do as much, if not more, actual work in society get paid far less. And in many cases, the ones at the top of the food chain, they may be more famous. Sometimes they're more educated, sometimes they're not. Whereas there's a lot of everyday people who may actually know functionally more than some of the people that are running the corporations, but the ones that what they don't know is the best way, quite frankly, to grease somebody's palm when it comes right down to it. Or they don't have the connections to really good lawyers or really good accountants or whomever, so that they can play those shell games with their wealth to hide it from taxes.
If you have a lot of wealth, you can find a lawyer.
I agree. I totally agree with that. That's the catch.
The lawyer that works.
I agree.
It's just, if we, no matter what it is, the people who are really smart will figure everything out. We'll figure it out. And yeah, there's a lot of psychopaths in business. Are there as many as in politics? I'm not sure.
I think it's a pretty even game there. Because the problem is the way a system, both our economy and our political structure, especially since they're so heavily intertwined, they favor psychopaths.
Well, the biggest place that they're intertwined is military-industrial.
Often, yes.
But also academic.
I agree.
Which I think we should move on.
Well, you're probably familiar with what's his name, Ray McGovern's Mickey Matt concept,
yes,
right?
I've written about it.
Yes. Okay.
So, what do you think? I'm out there and.
No, just for clarification, the people who are watching, it means military, industrial, congressional, intelligence.
Academic.
I forget what the M is. Academic think tank complex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Media. That's what the other M is.
Media. Yeah. It's all intertwined. And,
yeah. And that's part of the problem, of course, is it's literally intertwined because they're all owned by the same people.
Yeah.
Corporation A owns Corporation X, which owns parts of Corporation Q, which owns parts of Corporation D.
Well, I only mean this one as a very short diversion. But somebody I kind of know of wrote about it. President Biden, your Secretary of Defense is missing.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I replied to him, this is a must-make movie. Mr. President, yeah, your Secretary of Defense is missing. And then I wrote under it, nah, they'll never believe it.
Listen, U.S. public, your president is missing. He's standing right in front of you and he's still missing.
Well, an out-to-lunch government. I mean,
yeah, slightly. I was reading something about that specific issue, was commenting on how basically Blinken is Secretary of State Blinken is the only one who actually has any significant publicity and face time with the world, and everybody thinks he's a clown.
Certainly. I mean, he's affecting nothing in the current, the Israel-Hamas thing. He's the most ineffective person we've ever had.
He knows nothing about diplomacy. Unfortunately, our whole administration doesn't. That's the problem. That's why we're in the boat we're in right now.
Yeah.
Because they did everything they could to give the finger to diplomacy to the Russians. Now they're giving the finger to diplomacy to pretty much everyone else in the world. And you wonder why people run amok and start having little wars around that could metastasize into major wars.
Well, it's very upsetting. I mean,
slightly.
That they're saying the 10/7, October 7th.
Yeah.
That was a military operation. It wasn't some kind of sneak attack.
Mm-hmm.
Well, really good military operations had that aspect.
Mm-hmm. If
But
they're done well, yeah.
They're also basically trying to frame it as the American press. Hamas started the war at that date,
I know.
like Russia started the date it crossed the border.
Yeah.
The war was ongoing for quite a while. This war has been ongoing since 1948.
Actually, it's probably been ongoing since about 1890 or so.
You can at some point it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter, but
Right.
the thing is ongoing, and the American press is this was a sneak. Israel has a right to defend itself.
Exactly. Well, the argument, of course, the argument from the other side is that, and the occupation law supports it, is that they don't have the right to do it when you're talking about being an occupation force, because of the fact that the Palestinians, just like the Native Americans, you may have hated what they did, but they had the right to defend themselves from the fact that they were being oppressed by an occupying force. That's the argument in favor of the Palestinians and the Native Americans and a whole slew of other cultures over the course of many, many years.
Well, I don't want to get. I'm not cheering anyway. I'm a neutralist. The only country I'm cheering is America coming home.
Mm-hmm. I want this war to end.
What?
I want this war to end before it turns into something extremely destructive and stupid.
The Gamuchis in the South Sea Islands and the non-Gamuchis. I want them to. We all want all wars to stop, but let's be real about things. I mean, first of all, I don't glorify the Palestinians.
No.
I remember our war. I don't remember it, but I remember writing about it. Our war with the Barbary pirates.
Okay.
Now these.
You don't remember it?
I was a little late. You won't believe that. What's his name? Jefferson asked the ambassador from one of the Barbary states in France or England or somewhere, said, "Why are you? Oh, the Koran gives us the right to enslave and take all your property." They said that. Now he wasn't. He wasn't a radical.
So.
He wasn't a radical Muslim. He was a mainstream Muslim, head of a mainstream Muslim state, a vassal in a sense of the Sultan
Of the Ottoman Empire, yeah.
of the Ottoman Empire. He was mainstream, and we have a right to slavery, to enslavery.
Well, our society was saying exactly the same thing.
But we don't say that anymore.
We now call it wage slavery, but we stick them in places, make it secret.
That is a belief, because religion doesn't change. The Quran today is the Quran 100 years ago as 1,000 years ago. So I'm not going to glorify that as a way of life, but I will say the Palestinian person has a right to their life and freedom.
Exactly.
And that's why but that's also why I'm a neutralist. I don't want us to go over there and pick a side. Okay, the Israelis are better, the Palestinians are better. I don't want to do that.
Well, we shouldn't be doing that because we have a tendency.
We are doing it.
I know we are. But the problem is, historically, we have a tendency to pick sides for really lousy reasons. And then we get sucked into these huge quagmire messes that only end up hurting us and hurting the people on both sides of the quagmire in many respects. I mean, look at it. We're still in Iraq 5 years after they told us to go home.
And they're about to tell us
They're about to tell us it again, and we're probably going to give them a finger again.
Not to mention Syria.
But not to mention, we're not even legally supposed to be there.
No. And it's made a mess. And so...
And we're still bombing
But
Somalia.
look at how impotent we are now.
Yeah, I know.
And then we sent in, what was it, with which one went into the Mediterranean? Which one is now in the Red Sea?
What was that again?
The aircraft carriers.
I can't remember which ones were.
One of them we just took home.
Yeah.
Why did we take it home?
Because it wasn't doing anything.
Well, it was possibly going to get destroyed.
Possibly.
Because do you remember when you don't remember, but do you know historically the last aircraft carrier we lost?
Offhand, no, but
Do you know what war it was?
offhand, no.
It was, I remember it, because that's how ancient I am.
Okay.
It wasn't even when we get troops into Vietnam.
Okay.
In Saigon Harbor, a couple of VC, acting as frogmen,
Mm-hmm.
Went out to one of them, I guess swam out, attached charges, and sunk the USS Cod, the aircraft carrier.
Okay. I didn't know that.
These are great in a battle of Midway.
They're useless otherwise.
They're
Just giant targets.
They could be targets.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. That's why they have carrier groups. They don't just send out a carrier.
Well, they have a carrier and a bunch of destroyers.
That's
and a bunch
carrier
of
group.
cruisers, and yeah.
Yeah. So we took that. Somebody must have been thinking, and I think it was, what's his name, Putin said, I can fire a Kinzel at one of those.
Yeah.
And these are really, really vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so then we
They're
have
great for
one,
power projection, and that's it.
they're only if the power projected can't be destroyed.
If a power projected is against a country that can't fight back,
Well,
basically.
The other one is down near the Red Sea. I don't think it's
Yeah.
in the Red Sea.
I think it's in the Arabian Sea, actually.
It's south of Yemen.
Yeah.
It's south of Yemen. And we have that there, but we really haven't done that protect prosperity. What was it called?
Yeah.
Defend prosperity.
Well, that's because everybody else who we were trying to recruit into it said, we're not going to do that. That's really stupid.
Yeah. I mean,
Even the French who originally said they were going to do it said, no, I think we'll just protect our own shipping going through the Red Sea
and
because we're not going to get in this game.
the protecting of the shipping is done basically by agreement with the Houthis.
Yeah, exactly.
And we aren't doing that, so we don't have a thing in the game. we're not, the power projection just isn't happening.
No.
And so I was in a discussion with a guy on Substack who is a pretty important, had been an undersecretary or something. And he said, this is illegal. They can't do that. We have a right. And he said, I said to them, he said, they won't like it when we start bombing them with all the stuff. I brought up,
You mean bombing Yemen?
Yeah,
Okay.
bombing the Houthis. Well, yeah, they don't like it, but like the Afghan, like the Taliban,
Mm-hmm.
like the VC and the People's Army of Vietnam, it ain't whether you like it or not, it's how long you will stay with it.
Right.
And that discussion, everybody kind of agreed with me.
Right, yeah. Well, you figure the Houthis already have seen how ineffective power projection can be because they battled the Saudis to a standstill.
Yeah,
And are forcing the Saudis to basically negotiate a peace treaty. Hasn't gone very far yet,
Yeah.
but
well, once Saudi Arabia,
and that was supported. They were supported by us, and the Houthis know it.
once the Saudis had a sort of a rapprochement with Iran,
Yeah,
they're not looking for trouble. They stopped looking for trouble, including the UAE.
hopefully that's true. Yeah,
As a force projection group, Saudis are no Houthis.
as far as force goes at all, the Saudis are basically smoke and mirrors. They
They
always have been.
They basically have never been an armed force.
No.
They did drive away the Hashemites after World War I.
Yeah.
And that I have always wondered about, because the Hashemites in the Jordanian Arab Legion have been one of the tougher groups of Arab armies.
Mm-hmm.
And how I haven't studied the history of it, but how the Saudis were able to do that.
I think it was honestly. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact, from what I've read, is that they tapped into religious fanaticism with the organization that they called the Ikhwan, which means literally brotherhood. They tapped into those more religious warriors from the Bedouin tribes, and then after they occupied Mecca and Medina and kicked out the Hashemites, they they basically found that the Ikhwan were about to turn on them, so they got rid of them. Because they found that they were too fanatical, even for their own good. Because among other things, they wanted to, the Ikhwan wanted to invade British-held Iraq and so forth. And the Saudis looked at it and went, that will get us in the war with the British, and we will lose that. So they said, okay, we're getting rid of these people. And they did. And then they turned their armed forces, or what they called at the time the National Guard, into a more Western-style military, which basically corresponds exactly to the time that Abdulaziz converted his title from Sultan to King, making himself more of a Western-style leader than an Arab-style.
Well, the Hashemites did that too.
They all did, yeah. Of course, that after the Saudis kicked them out of Mecca and Medina, the British basically salvaged what remained of the Hashemite dynasty and stuck one in Jordan and one in Iraq.
Yeah, and the one in Iraq isn't doing too well now.
He's very long deceased.
In the idea of non-existence.
Yeah.
Of attaining one with the eternity.
Yep.
't I'd like to feed this for no real purpose to say, education in the United States, I mean, I think the game is up with the Ivy League in the sense that
Could be.
I think Brian Kaplan's comment that the case against education is that basically it's a signal that you are eligible to be into the, you're a crown prince into the elite, or princess.
Depending on, a lot of that is.
And I think the contretemps with Claudine Gay, who's never been a particularly wonderful person. I mean, she
honestly, I didn't even recognize her name until it came up in the last few days. I couldn't even care less.
Famed for beating up on Roland Fryer, who was a legitimate scholar.
Okay.
And her whole idea was, to get a sinecure. And boy, would I love that sinecure.
Actually, she still has it. She doesn't. She's not president anymore, but she still has tenure.
She has the pay. She has a professorship.
Yep.
But she doesn't have that goddess level.
I couldn't care less, honestly.
What?
Honestly, I couldn't care less. I mean,
Well,
I think we should be doing everything we can to depose a lot of these pompous individuals that run academia and corporations.
Well, I have nothing against that. I mean, but has it always been the game?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think part of it actually ties into something that I was reading just a couple of days ago, so I'm glad you brought it up, is I was reading how, as you might know, originally our country was up in the 99% percentile range of literacy. It's now like 71%. No, sorry, it's 78%. And I was reading how the average, more than half of the country cannot read at a 6th grade level. That's a pretty sad slide since I was a child. Because back then, I think we were still in the top echelons, education-wise.
What would you say that is caused by?
I think there's so many competing things in there. I think part of it is the fact that our school systems have gotten to the point where at most levels they're more focused on just passing people along as opposed to actually educating them. Some degree they're focused on giving them the credentials of a degree or whatever when they don't actually earn it. I think it's kind of gone overboard where, yes, I think the original idea of trying to expand the schools to help educate people who were having difficulties is a good thing. In principle, it's a good thing, and trying to do it right is important. But it has become just a flag-waving exercise that doesn't really educate anymore. And I think a lot of it has to do also because of consultants buying into the educational systems and selling these constantly changing programs every couple of years that really don't do anything.
Well,
They don't stick with any one curriculum long enough to actually work.
okay. I went to a parochial school.
Okay, I did not.
And, you know, and everybody wants to beat the hell out of the nuns in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, did I hate them. But I can now observe the system.
Yeah.
And basically it was, if you will do the work, and you will show up, and you'll shut up. And we know, and these were not college-educated women
Right.
who did this.
Mm-hmm.
And the school was, scores and everything was ahead of the public schools.
Right. That often was the case, yeah.
Because the mission wasn't all-encompassing.
Mm-hmm.
It was focused on, and I'm not even going to say because this, but to me it seemed like the mission was get the job done.
Yeah.
The other thing was
I think the public schools used to do that too.
they probably weren't that as bad.
Yeah.
They weren't as focused. I mean, they were still, oh, we got to save everybody a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but they weren't as focused as the nuns
But they were far more focused than I think the schools in general are today.
today.
Yeah.
And it ain't coming back. It ain't coming back.
It can, but we require massive changes.
And that's not going to happen.
Anytime soon, probably not.
No.
Unfortunately. It should, but it won't.
Remember what's her name? And I know I'm all for a union for teachers, to great. But I do know one thing about socialism and unions. And I thought it was C.S. Lewis who said it, but I don't know who it is. But it was basically, in a socialist country, a strike is a civil war.
Okay.
So unions, government unions are going to be like that. Basically, you're having a civil war in your country. And I'm all for, as much as I might all be for unions, my father, union tradition,
Yes.
I can see that it's the people against the people.
Well, to some degree, that is true, I guess. But I mean, the problem. Part of the
What
problem
degree
is.
isn't it?
Well, I mean, it is. Yeah, it is obviously because the ones who are the decision makers and running the system are obviously people too. No question about that.
Solidarity in Poland proved that point.
Oh, sure.
We never have to argue that
That
again.
is true. That's true. I think one of the issues that maybe has helped undermine that is the fact that the law prohibits most of teachers and police unions and those from actually striking anymore. So you don't actually, they'd actually go on strike.
You know who made the case against that? Against public union striking?
No.
It was that right-wing fanatic, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Okay.
And I've quoted that, his writing about that, or what his speech or whatever about that, many times.
Okay.
Sometimes things have to reduce to the absurd.
Yeah, you said that.
And I go back and forth with Mike here about the economy.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, watching from 1950, when I could buy for a nickel, a good-sized bag of M&Ms, and I had a bad M&Ms Jones, to today where I can't even afford to become pre-diabetic on these things.
Right.
That
You get one M&M maybe.
the
if you're lucky.
currency is to a certain extent dying, but the school
More or less
system
is, yes.
So everything will reduce to the absurd until it gets so bad that everything dies, or somebody comes along and knows what they're doing. And nobody's asking me.
No, I think part of it will actually, I think what we'll see more likely than not is we will see small outgrowths of sanity and competence pop up in various places in various ways. I think part of the reason that that we're in the boat that we're in right now is that we are allowing too much of groupthink to take on, to take over what a lot of people recognize should be done on the local level, and there's too many of these weird games that get played that undermine the ability of local communities to do the stuff that they need to get done, including education, including supporting the roads and those kinds of things.
So how do you go? How do you go off and start your reform?
I'm not. I don't know if it's a matter of trying to do it in some sort of an organized manner. I'm saying that they will happen.
Would you say homeschooling is an aspect of that?
It could be. And we're already seeing that in various ways, various forms of homeschooling, various or small groups of people getting together and creating de facto schools that are unofficial. There are various kinds of educational systems out there that aren't really even formal, but they're probably more effective than some of the formal systems we now have.
I wish I
mean, there's all kinds of, it's the way, it's kind of a social evolution. That's what happens.
I wish I could be confident. I wish I could be confident.
I think it will happen. It already is happening.
But I don't think to the degree we would both say is necessary. But
Probably
the
not.
degree it is necessary to say au revoir right now, as we've reached a time limit, is such that I want to thank you guys for coming. I want to thank the audience at home. This is Richard Morchoe, and this has been the Long Hill Report.
Have a good week. Have a good month.